and business club in India, the Bengal Club. Set up in 1827 as a meeting place where people from the military, the judiciary, businessmen and professionals of the British Empire gathered together. Independence brought about a change in clientele, but not in character. Professionals, businessmen, people from the service sector, bureaucrats, and academics started rubbing shoulders in the corridors of this hallowed institution. Welcome to the library of the Bengal Club, an institution within an institution. A veritable collection of books, the like of which you're unlikely to find anywhere else in the city, and indeed in this country. Recordings by famous speakers who have spoken here in the library, and a collection of books on any subject that you may want to look for. Books by Nobel laureates, books by Bengal Club members, books on political science, philosophy, ethics and morality, food and drinks, sports and culture. Mention the subject and it's available here. There is also a small Wi-Fi corner where you can browse the internet in peace. They say there is no subject under the sun. If you're looking for a book, you will find it on these shelves of the Library of the Bengal. Envy the books, enjoy the collection, but above all, celebrate in the ambience of this wonderful library, the Library of the Bengal Club. Welcome to see the other famous individuals who have launched their books on this site. And recordings of that book launch are also available in this library. Welcome to the Library of the Bengal Club. On behalf of the Library Subcommittee, welcome to this program.
Good evening and welcome to this very special evening brought to you by the Library Subcommittee of the Bengal Club. My guest today is a man who's a man only of A's. There's nothing but A in his life because he's an accomplished actor, an accomplished author, an accomplished academic, and an accomplished advertiser as well. A man who shot to fame in his fantastic rendition of the young executive in Satyajit Ray's Seemabaddha. I have great pleasure in welcoming Mr. Barun Chanda to the high chair, please. Welcome. Mr. Chanda is, I know him through a number of ways. Through his brain, through his spine, through the fact that he's my neighbor, and of course, as all of you know him, through his fantastic acting and portrayal of various personalities, even in addition to his portrayal in Seemabaddha. What you perhaps don't know is that he's also an author of 4 Bengali books and 2 English novels. The last of which, if I'm right, is a murder mystery. This one, the English novel, not, the fiction work, is a murder mystery.
Hello? Yeah, all right, yeah, it works.
And perhaps this book is influenced by his fascination for murder mysteries, because the title of the book that we're going to talk about today is The Man Who Knew Too Much. And of course, I'm sure that another man who wrote murder mysteries apart from Barun Chanda may have influenced this title, but we'll let him talk about it himself. As you know, he is a national award winner and he has a lot of accolades. But I think it is better that Barun Chanda, the man, the actor, the academic, and the personality comes through in the course of the dialogue rather than my carrying on this soliloquy about a man that you all know about anyway. So the book that we are discussing, Borunda, called Satyajit Ray, The Man Who Knew Too Much, in my perception, this is a book which is in two parts. He says this is in two parts. What he doesn't tell you, and what I think I should tell you, as the first part is autobiographical and the second part is biographical. The first part is almost an autobiography of the author, very cleverly concealed in his interactions with Satyajit Ray, but in fact it is really a beautiful autobiographical work. The second, of course, is a biographical appreciation of Satyajit Ray, from a very different perspective to the perspective that we would normally talk about, because instead of talking about flatteringly about his genius, he talks a lot about his different facets of his personality, ranging from dictatorship to dynamism. Without much ado, Borunda, I think you will allow me to ask you the first question, which is title, influenced by Alfred Hitchcock?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it goes without saying. But I have a feeling that, in this particular case, it's justified in a literal sense, not the way Hitchcock meant it. That, as a matter of fact, Aparna Sen read the book and said, Habluda, I liked everything about the book, but I didn't like the title. I said, why? And she said, The Man Who Knew Too Much is a kind of boasting, that you sort of say that in a denigratory manner. I wasn't sure. But yes, in the movie, yes, knowing too much was caused a lot of problems for him. But in this book, I think it's literally true. He knew literally much too much. And my personal feeling is that his Brahmo religion, he was a Brahmo, though he wasn't going to the Samaj, Brahmo Samaj, Sadharan Samaj, ba sob jagate muti jacchilen na uni. But inside he was a thoroughgoing Brahmo. And one of the things is that he never ever expressed his anger or irritation. Sort of sob hojom kore niten ar ki. That could have, and the you have a kind of lot of inside strain in you as a movie maker. That could have caused the heart attack more than anything else. So there is the debit side of knowing too much, actually. But having worked with him and having known him closely, I shudder to think, my God, I mean, earlier on I had to sort of, had this thing about wanting to be a director. But once I saw him in from close quarters, my God, I mean, if that is the kind of regime one has to go through to make a single film, I would never be able to do that. He was that kind of a man. I mean, I'll just give you a stray instance. When he decided to have me on board for the role of Dr Chatterjee in Seemabaddha, he took me personally to my tailor. I want to see the cut. I want to see. He personally bought the fabric. তুমি কোথায় তোমার টেইলার কোথায়? তো আমি বললাম যে আমার একটা খুব মজার টেইলার আছেন জহর ব্যানার্জি বলে, তার বাবা উনাকে বিলেত পাঠিয়েছিলেন ব্যারিস্টার হওয়ার জন্য, উনি টেইলারিংটা পাস করে ফিরে আসেন। তো আচ্ছা বুঝি, তাই আমি একটু যাব, আমি একটু দেখতে চাই। And he sat there creating a huge crowd behind him, and he sat there, mapnichi, anything, everything, sat there all through. কবে পাওয়া যাবে? আমি আর তোমার এই যেগুলো ফিটমেন্ট হয় তার মধ্যে আর আমি আসছি না, বাট অলরাইট, ফাইন, গ্রেট, সি ইউ। আজকের দিনে কোনো ডিরেক্টর, ইউ কান্ট ইম্যাজিন him doing this for a hero. No, unthinkable.
Since the first part of the novel is about Barun Chanda more than Satyajit Ray.
Is it a novel?
No, I mean the work, I should say. I was just wondering whether I could ask you a little bit about Barun Chanda before I ask you about Satyajit Ray. And you have very clearly say how you began life as in an advertising agency, and you talk a lot about it. And in fact, that was your first contact with the man, through the advertising agency. Yeah. And then, of course, we all know that you taught and was an academic.
For a while.
You have become an author. I
don't think it profited my students at all, but
I just wanted to ask you, which of the three A's did you find most attractive? Acting, being an academic, being in the advertising world, or being an author of a book?
Difficult choice. But I would say, on the face of it, advertising I literally loved. I mean, it did not fetch me a lot of money because in Calcutta they pay poorly, or they used to pay poorly when I was working there. But it gave me an enormous satisfaction. I've never felt bored in my life during my career, no.
And it's just ironical that one of your advertising films you made was about fans in your advertising days, and the fan is the big theme in Seemabaddha as well. Was that just pure coincidence?
Yes, I do recall faintly having made a ceiling fan for some export product, very faintly, and about a sheikh sort of sweating under his enormous jobba, and then there was this beautiful dancer doing a belly dance in front of him, and she started sweating as well, and lo and behold, there was this magic switch, and the fan began to revolve, and everything cooled down, and the sheikh was very happy, and she carried on dancing.
Tell them the sentence that you used then.
Come again.
Tell them the sentence that you used in that advertising film about the fan.
No, nothing great. But it was very simplistic to my mind. But you're sending to the Middle East. They're not noted for high intellect. So if it's physical, visually attractive, I think it works. You have to know your target audience. That's That much I can tell you from advertising.
And the fan is also coincidentally figures in the film.
That is absolutely an accident. Absolutely an accident.
Even the last,
As a matter of fact,
the image
now
of the
that
film
you
is
bring
the
out,
fan.
the thought had not occurred to me. No.
One of the first things you describe is this film you made about the fan, and then you think about Seemabaddha, and you think about the last scene of the film, which is also the fan. And it just seems it's such a striking similarity, which is totally coincidental, I'm sure.
Yeah, yes. But
maybe you haven't even thought of that because you didn't mention that when you wrote.
There is a link. There is a link.
Yeah, but you actually didn't mention this in your book, that link between the two. But it is obvious and tacit to a leader who reads through the pages like I have. The book begins with a beautiful description, for those of you who have read it or get hold of it later on, about his first interview of Satyajit Ray, which in summary can be said to be an unmitigated disaster. Would you agree with that?
Come again?
I said your first...
I was carried away by this melodious sound.
Yeah. If you can kindly have the melodious sound off, please. Thank you. I was just going to ask you that the first image of the book that I have is of the first interview you did of Satyajit Ray, which, if I may sum up in a phrase, was an unmitigated disaster.
It was. It was literally an unmitigated
disaster. So I think you should
disaster.
tell the audience how it was an unmitigated disaster, because that's beautifully portrayed in the first chapter of the book, how desperate he was to get to Satyajit Ray, and the channels he adopted to get the first interview. It was for Junior Statesman, right?
Yes.
And then, when he went there armed with a recording device and everything to impress the man, how Murphy's Law just broke loose.
Absolutely for me. When I went there, armed with a garage tape recorder, 16 spool, we didn't have these fancy stuff at that time. So went there, and I had not carried a pencil or paper because I thought I was carrying a recorder. So everything is recorded. All I need to do was sort of, censor it, edit it here and there, and sort of put it up. That's it. My write-up is ready. But I'll jump a little behind. I approached Junior Statesmen for a specific reason. Ray was still working as a director. I mean, at least his name was enlisted as a director with the Clarion Advertising, where I was working then. I've been an ad man all my life, and only the second half of my life has to do anything with the film or celluloid world. And I still don't call myself a celluloid person, really. I would rather. I mean, my connection with the film world is very, very specific. I mean, I know a few actors, they call me, and I go and shoot the film, and I get out. कोई ताल्लुक नहीं है मेरा film world के साथ. But advertising I was really interested in at that time. And what I did was, I asked my directors, who were all colleagues of Ray, একদিন আমাকে নিয়ে চলুন না বাড়িতে আলাপ করিয়ে দেবেন একটু. I'm dying to meet him. And why are you scared, Borun? You should go over there and say that you work in Clarion Advertising. He will take you in. That did not satisfy me somehow. So, অপাঙ্ক্তেও হয়ে যাব ওখানে. What happens if you say, না, এখন তো কাউকে আমি নিচ্ছি না ভাই. Kaput, shesh, over. And I would have put my cards across, and they would have gone, absolutely a cropper. So I thought it was intelligent at that time, and I approached Desmond Doig, quite a brilliant, accomplished person at that time, who was editing a tabloid magazine called JS, which stands for Junior Statesman. And I went there and I said that I wish to interview the great Mr. Ray, Satyajit Ray, on behalf of your magazine. I was very lucky in the sense that they had never interviewed him before in that magazine. And he must have thought that, oh, why not? Here's this young lad who's come over, so I could kill two birds with one stone. So he said, yes, go ahead. Now I had a real reason, an excuse for going to meet him. And I went back to office and called him up and said that I'm so-and-so, and I wish to interview on behalf of JS. And he gave me a date and everything else. That's how it started. And I carried all this stuff, and the incredible thing happened in the sense that, when I was about to start the recorder, it just refused to budge. Totally dead. And the great man himself, he must have been watching me and sort of, getting increasingly nervous. And he also failed. I have a feeling actually the plug point that we were trying was not working properly. Because when I went back and I was, I really wanted to throw it into the dustbin. The only thing that prevented me was it did not belong to me. It belonged to somebody else. So I couldn't dump it. And it worked when I went back home. So that could be the only reason, the only thing that might have happened. But of course I didn't realize at that time. And for a minute, everything froze. I could not think of a single question. Total blank. But cut a long story short, it worked out fine. I mean, I took the proverbial 10 deep breaths and sort of that brought the temperature down, and maybe that kind of thing a little. And I started remembering the questions, and I carried on. I could not ask him for a pen and paper. I had that kind of inverted, stupid pride. So he must have been amused when it was all over. He said, Borun, ota publish hobar age amake kintu dekhiye nebe copy. He was absolutely right. I mean, how am I expected to write an entire interview from memory, a 52-minute interview? And he would want to see it, of course. Hati ghoda ki chai liklo bhagwan jane. God knows.
But you never showed it to him.
No, I didn't show it to him. Again, my inverted pride, young pride prevented me. And I slipped that magazine, an advance copy, while he was dining and ran away. And 2 days later, I called him up, sort of very informally, have you received the copy? Yes. Yeah. পড়লাম তো ঠিকই আছে মোটামুটি ঠিকই লাগছে ওই একটা তুমি সিমি গাড়িওয়ালার জায়গাটা একটু আমার মনে হয় একটু গন্ডগোল করে ফেলেছো otherwise I can't see any fault there. What I had done was, as soon as I went back, I played back from memory. এই প্রশ্নটা করেছিলাম after this, that, and jotted down the questions. If you got the questions, the answers immediately come back. It's this association. It has to happen. And to that, I added rather. I could make out, well, let's see now, and that kind of thing. So I added all that kind of stuff once in a while. And he must have thought, my God, this man has got my talking mannerisms as well.
Borun,
I was cheating, of course.
I'm going to ask you a difficult question now. Suppose you were going to interview him today, what would be the first question you asked? Because the first question you asked him about was it whether he read Bengali novels or books or something like that, if my memory serves me right from the book.
No, that was later. That was later. He asked me, which was a rather cruel thing to do. I don't know what made him think. I didn't have that accent that I have now. At least I wasn't using it there. He thought I was, what? Dance guru, that kind of thing. He started saying, Borun, tumi Bangla upন্যাস পড়ো? এই যে সব শারদীয় সংখ্যাগুলো বেরোয়, এগুলো তুমি আদৌ দেখেছো? What made you think I don't read Bengali stuff? আমি শারদীয় দেশ রাখি, আমি শারদীয় আনন্দবাজার রাখি, all that. Acha. And then he told me a couple of stories which he wanted me to read. That was the first. I never thought.
Suppose you were interviewing today, what question would you start the interview with? Or if you were to go back today, back in history to that day in Bishop Lefroy Road, what would you ask him?
The first part of the question, if today I were to meet him and to interview him, I would talk about what he had gained in life. Was it just the recognition, the worldwide fame? What is it to be like at the top of the world? Is it lonesome or what? That is the question I would have asked.
Okay, we'll advance a little down the book and get to the first day, first shoot. Patna.
Yes.
Railway station, I think on an overbridge.
Yeah, right, yeah.
With the camera perched precariously on the overbridge.
Right.
Tell us about that first day, first shoot in Patna.
He just wanted, in the story, in the film, it's like, it's part of a narrative. It just involved a shot. We were standing on the overbridge, and the camera was looking down almost vertically. And he had worked out the timings of that mail or express train which was supposed to go. And 10 minutes or 15 minutes before that, he had mounted the camera and waited patiently for the train to arrive and then to leave. He just had one take of that. And what happened was, I don't know, it must have been also sheer luck that it was a Canadian engine, and those were the days of steam engine again. So all that coal and, powdered coal and all that muck was coming out and hitting straight into the camera. And he was very happy with the shot. Yeah, I've got it. And he did not wait for a second train, no. He didn't have to.
Another very interesting description is your interaction with Shormila. The young Barun Chanda with Shormila Thakur. Tell us a little about it, because a lot of it is very interestingly described in the book. We'll come to Rinadi later on. Let's talk Shormila first.
When you were young, you want to do mischievous things. What I thought was, Shormila at that time, she had just done, I think, Kashmir Ki Kali in Bombay. She was the rage, absolutely the rage. And here I was, the cad youth, unknown totally. So what I thought of doing was, the first day shoot, when she's there shooting with Ray, I wasn't there. So I thought, what happens if I stealthily creep up on her and armed with an autograph book and say that I'm an ardent admirer of yours, Shormila. Will you please sign a few words, or write a few words? And I would have given a different name, certainly. And it was all planned so that the first time when we were shooting together at the Racecourse, she would be raging mad when she would see me again, that this is Seemabaddha Chatterjee. So I would have tricked her. And I just wanted to see her face, what happens at that time. It didn't. Ray was the ultimate spoilsport. Because what happened was, everything was topsy-turvy. It took place at HHI, Hotel Hindustan International, on the ground floor. And there were the guests, and also the shooting was taking place. So there was mayhem, absolute chaos. And there was Ray explaining to Roy, যে কিভাবে ক্যামেরাটা ইউজ করা হবে, etc., etc. So, and he was going through the script, going through the pictures, etc. And I realized that Bodhi wasn't there, because Bodhi would have been, hey, Borun, tumi eshecho. Bas, it would have killed everything. Thank God she wasn't there. And I realized, okay, now. And she was, I think with the makeup person, the last finishing touches on her face. As I was sort of, creeping up to her. Suddenly, incredible, he just looked straight at me. Borun, there you are. Rinku! He shouted, Rinku mane 15 mile dur thekeo tele pore shunte peto ar ki. It was so loud. Yet, and ei je tomar nayok. God. I could only roll my eyes up towards heaven and said, my God, you killed it. You've killed it totally. That's that. My first meeting with Shormila.
The young Barun Chanda writes a beautiful paragraph in his book. This is following what he didn't tell you, because he's probably a little embarrassed to tell a Bengal club audience about this. But when Shormila, in the Racecourse scene, which he describes so beautifully in his book, came up to him, Shormila apparently tugged at his jacket. And he says, and I'm going to read this little paragraph, because it gives you the idea of the young Barun Chanda then. He says, looking back, I must admit Shormila was fantastic in this scene. And then why she was fantastic is revealed by Barun Chanda in his next sentence, when he says, I don't know if she clutched at my jacket at Ray's prompting or not. If she did it on her own, it would have been a brilliant touch. Do you know whether she did it on her own or at Ray's prompting to this date?
I never asked her. I never asked her. I wasn't that close to her. I mean, it was done so impromptu. And she never looked at me. So it created a lot of mixed emotions, and I let it pass. But it was a brilliant gesture. And I have a feeling Ray might have prompted.
Though you wished otherwise.
Then it would have been an absolutely brilliant touch. What was happening, I mean, she was at the Racecourse for the first time in her life. She was from Patna, hinterland, the country mice, mouse. And the first race was just over, and she was getting the pulse and the thrill of the races, and she said, after the first race was over, abar khelbo, and she clutched at my jacket, just for a brief while. And after that, she never looked back at me. I mean, it was just that kind of gesture. So I really don't know whether Ray, I have a feeling Ray did tell her.
There's another reason why you remember the Racecourse scene as you describe in your book. You lost $100. Tell the audience about that.
the camera was mounted there, and from time to time, one was waiting. Ray was such a planned person. He was there way, before time. And when we were shooting, it was an off day. I think we were shooting on a Friday or something like that. He shot there on 2 different days. When he shot us, he had specially arranged for the races, for the horses to gallop past and that kind of stuff, but not the crowd at all. So it couldn't have been Saturday or a Sunday. It wasn't. But those were the racing days. What happened was he very cleverly mixed it up. When editing, he mixed it up with the crowd shots and everything else. And please go and see the movie. I mean, it's easily available on YouTube.
$100.
Oh, $100. I was trying to avoid that. Anyway, so there was this camera mounted on there, and everybody was taking a look from time to time. Nothing much was happening. But I thought, what the heck? I might as well take a look. So I went up and went through the viewfinder. And immediately from the camera department, everyone pounced upon me. Taka chhado. What happened? They belong to the film unit. You are an actor. You're an outsider. You're not a race unit. Thank God I had $100 with me. that was that.
Borun, let's go to a little wider canvas of your amazing life. If I were to ask you today, life before Seemabaddha and life after Seemabaddha, how did it change? How did Barun Chanda's life change before and after Seemabaddha?
It actually was a watershed mark in my life. There's no disputing that. I might be sort of, everyone might think that, I'm trying to sensationalize this, but it isn't. The fame, it got me. Even today, after 52 years, after the film was launched in 1971, that's a good deal, 52 years ago, even now people sort of, stop me in the streets and said, oh, Borun Babu or Borunda, I still can't forget your Seemabaddha. And some people have quoted lines from there, which is incredible. So that is a watershed mark. Life before and life after. And what also happened, it gave me a different kind of confidence, inner confidence. I don't know how an acting in a single film of Ray could change my sense of confidence. I have no idea, but it did. I was inside changing, a changed person. I had much more confidence. It could have something to do with the role, because I become a director at the end of the film. And I might have started believing that I could become a director. It's possible. And so when actually it came talking to directors in the professional life, in the corporate world, I felt quite comfortable, which I don't think I would have earlier on, no. So that is the kind of change that it brought me. And the amount of fame it fetched me, just one film. Thank God I didn't do more with him. And I didn't do more films at all. For about 20 years I did not act in a single film. And so there was this air of mystery about that man. So any interview begins with that typecast question. Why didn't you act after Seemabaddha?
That's the question I was just going to ask you. So you've asked the question yourself. Now you can answer it.
I got you. See, you could say I'm prescient. Right? No, for a very, very valid reason. I think what happened was a whole lot of people who saw the movie at that time must have felt that, wow, this is a fresh face. You have Uttam Kumar, you have Soumitra Chatterjee, and the whole lot of others, actors in Bengali. They were all very good actors, but here was a man straight out of the corporate life, totally different looking, tall, slim, jacketed, suited, booted, and feeling totally, totally comfortable. And he exuded a totally different kind of, projected a different kind of hero in Bengali films, which did not exist before. Really. I attended the book fest this year, and because there is a slight mistake, a slight error on your part, because Boimelate, I had the 5th book, Bengali book, come out now, right? And I was signing, and there was this lady who came up to me and said, Borunda, if I may call you that, I really don't know how to address you, but আমি একটা কথা বলি আপনাকে. I said, please do. I mean, feel free. And she said, when I first saw you in Seemabaddha, I was struck by the air of difference that you exuded, that you brought. I was an avid film goer, but nothing had prepared me for you. Seemabaddha, I think, is a totally different kind of film just because of the hero, because he looks so totally different from the usual Bengali stars or actors. And after a while she said, sort of almost as an afterthought, she said, I still think there has been no one quite like you. And I realized, I mean, all right, I might sound very egocentric, I'm not. I'm very humbled by all this accolade. But I thought there was a grain of truth there. To this day, just name all the actors that have followed up, Abir and Arjun and everybody else. And you see Seemabaddha again, and you compare the today's range of actors. I think still it's just a mismatch. So,
Borun, the second part of your book is, of course, about Ray, the man, the director. A lot of people feel, including myself, I don't know whether the audience will get the audience in to ask questions a little later. There is a lot of Satyajit Ray in Barun Chanda, in the mannerisms, speech, even intonation of voice. Is that accidental, coincidental, or incidental?
No. You were seeing me wrong. I have nothing to do with Ray, no. I can try and imitate his voice, but that is all.
Tell us, you say you write a chapter called Ray, an actor's director.
Yes.
Why, would you like to elaborate on why you call him an actor's director?
Oh, because, he seemed to have this incredible sense of what might be happening inside a first-time actor acting in a Ray film. And he was very fond of, he had the courage, almost, it was like a blind plunge. Let me say this, the City trilogy, beginning with Pratidwandi and then Seemabaddha and then Jano Aranyo. These are all 70s films, very troubled period kind of films. In each of them, he brought in a new hero who had absolutely no previous acting experience worth speaking. And he made each one of them famous as actors. So he had that supreme confidence in him, but one does not know how he worked it out. There was a kind of method he employed. The first he did was, I'll sort of jump with the last film. I used to be quite friendly with Pradeep. I'm really sad that he's now no more. And I had a sort of thorough chat with him. And he narrated to me how Ray first met him. And he had seen him doing a theatre. And it must have stuck in his mind. He had done a comedy, but it still had stuck in his mind. And 2 years later, he started asking his assistants to find out where Pradeep Mukherjee might be. So they traced him back and brought him back to Ray. And of course, I mean, Pradeep was quite aghast. I mean, why, what? And he sat there like this, we were. And Pradeep said, he was always looking at me, observing me. And while I answered questions quite artlessly, and then he said, do you wear your shirt over your trousers? Because he was. So, I mean, I'm more comfortable. Oh, okay. In the film, you will wear the shirt over the trousers. You don't have to tuck it in. But these are very small but very smart things that he did to make the actor start feeling comfortable. He would tweak the role, tweak the character, the personality of the role to suit him. Then he looked down at the sandals. So if you can sort of make out his eyes panning down the camera, and he noticed the chappals. Oh, to me, choti poro. আমি চটি পরে ভাল লাগে ঠিক বাহ সুন্দর তো চটি কোথায় এটা পেলে কোথায় You are going to wear sandals in my film. Gradually, Pradeep himself said that at that time I did not realize it. But now, looking back, since you asked me the questions, it was all to make me more and more comfortable in that new role. So he had worked out a beautiful way of making them feel at home. First time actor. Shangatik rokom ekta boy. When those days you didn't have these blimps and these silent cameras didn't exist. So, and this huge lens and all that. It terrorizes an actor, the first time actor. He was doing all that, and he would say, ignore the camera, don't, it doesn't exist, don't.
Talking about his handling of actors, you write in one of the chapters a beautiful description of Seemabaddha and of Reenadi, who you talked about in the beginning, climbing a tree.
Yes.
And you mention in your book 2 incidents in the life of Aparna Sen that occurred during the filming of Seemabaddha that she told you she's never forgotten. Would you like to share that with our audience?
She shared a whole lot of things. Which two are you alluding to? No, there was one.
When she was climbing a tree.
Yeah.
And she also had to make love in the next scene, though she was 16 or 15 or something.
No, even less than that. I think was 13 and a half or 14 like that. She used to be quite a tomboy at that time, Aparna. And so when she was asked to climb a mango tree, she thought, wow, it's a lark. And halfway up, she spotted these large ants or something like that, perilously close to her. And in a moment of fright, her hands loosened, she fell absolutely, staggeringly flat on the ground. Thank God it was soft earth, it didn't hurt her. And everybody in the, it was an outdoor shooting, and everybody started laughing, and she felt so bad that she had messed up that shot and that kind of thing. Sort of incredibly, Ray okayed that shot. He said, no, I will retain this. I'm not going to reshoot this. He thought again that, it was so real that you want to climb up and you fall down. It's fine. It makes it even more real. Because we are vulnerable. We are human. We make mistakes. We fall down while trying to climb up a tree. That's all, I think.
You make a point about Ray's towering personality all the time in the second half of your book. And amongst the interactions with other famous people of your tribe that you describe, one, of course, is Chobi Bishwas in Jalshaghar. And of course, the first question that you yourself mention in that, and one that all of us have often wondered and we hear a lot of narratives about this, is how did two towering personalities get on with each other on that sets of Jalshaghar?
One would have thought that, they were really both of them were very strong personalities, and I think to an extent sort of, unbendable. I won't say rigid, unbendable. And so it worked out. I mean, later on, Ray himself was full of trepidation. He said so, that আমি প্রথম যখন ছবিবাবুর কাছে গেলাম, ও ছবিবাবু এলেন আমার কাছে, মানে I couldn't go up to him. I've sent emissaries to find out whether he would at all be agreeable to do Jalshaghar. The book was quite famous by then. So he didn't have the guts to go up to him and say, "Apni korben ei rolta." So he came to hear that, yes, Ray wants him to consider the film, whether he would act in it. And typical of the man, it must have been winter, he wore a full suit, arrived at Ray's place, smartly attired, and Ray in personal life always wore these loose pajama and Punjabi, nothing else. Sheath hole ekta oi chador, that's it. And here was this man, totally westernized. He came. He thought that, let me first find out whether I can act with him. Because he had all kinds of tantrums. He didn't work more than 3.5, 4 hours a day. He arrived 2.5, 3 hours late.
And he left early because he was not feeling well. Is that right?
Yes. And he wanted to find out. I think he himself was, the fame had preceded. He had just done, 2 or 3 films before that, Jalshaghar. And he had already become one of the best film directors that ever existed, that kind of thing. And so he was also, I think, a little wary about Ray. And he must have heard and seen that he was a towering person physically. That's 6'4" and broad shoulders, cleft chin, and that English, my God. So, uni nije eshe suddenly knocked on the door and said, "Ami Chobi Bishwash, apni amake ei জলসাগরের জন্য দেখেছেন মনে হয়েছে?" He came straight to the point, and after a while he came to another very vital point for him. Satyajit Babu, আপনি এই গল্পটার মধ্যে একটা ওই ঘোড়া চালানোর ব্যাপার রয়েছে আমার, সেটা আমি কিন্তু কোনোদিন ঘোড়া চালাইনি। আমি ছবিবাবুর গলাটা আমি নকল করার চেষ্টা করব না। He had a totally different kind of voice. হয়তো যদি দেখতাম লিপ মুভমেন্ট থেকে হয়তো চেষ্টা করা যেত। এনিওয়ে, বললেন যে আমার এখন 57 বছর বয়স, এখন ঘোড়া চালানোটা, ঘোড়া চড়তে শেখাটা, ওটা অ্যাভয়েড করা যায় না? And inwardly, Ray was trying to figure out, my God, I have a huge problem. Because he had thought of that, he's quite a seasoned actor. He must be knowing how to ride a horse or something like that. And he said, no, আমি কোনোদিন ঘোড়ায় চড়িনি, আর আমাকে এই বয়সে দয়া করে বলবেন না।
Ray couldn't teach Chobi Bishwas to ride a horse, no. But he did teach Barun Chanda how to drive a car. Tell us about that.
No, I still can't drive a car, no.
But you drove over the Howrah Bridge in your book. You describe
I did.
Driving over the Howrah Bridge in the 1970s. My God, couldn't have been easy. My
heart must have been in my mouth at that time, because when you're driving early in the morning in the lanes and by lanes during winter, it's uninhabited. You can sort of drive onto the footpath, pavement, nothing happens. Nobody sort of cries foul or anything. And you have the comforting presence of the driver, the seasoned driver, who's sort of, and you must know this, that all these training cars have double clutches and all that. So even if you miss it, he would automatically use the clutches at the right time. Everybody gear to change korun. No. Second gear. First gear থেকে second gear যাবেন. So, and after that, suddenly he asked me, না, তুমি ওই হাওড়া স্টেশন থেকে হাওড়া এই ব্রিজ পার হয়ে তুমি ভিক্টোরিয়া মেমোরিয়ালের ওখানেতে চালিয়ে যাবে। I said, my God. And he was going to sit by my side and shoot me while I was driving and talking, supposed to be talking to Shormila, and only thing that Shormila wasn't there. Bhagyish chilo na, noile pore aro hat kembe jeto nishchoi. So, and I was so terrified, I tried to dissuade him and say, acha, এটা ওই আপনাদের করেন না, ওটা একটা কি বলে ব্যাক প্রজেকশন, ওটা করলে হয় না? স্টুডিওর মধ্যে করলাম ব্যাক প্রজেকশন, আপনি দেখালেন হাওড়া স্টেশন, হাওড়া ব্রিজটি পার হচ্ছে না। One word, one sound, negative. মানিকদা, আপনার ইন্স্যুরেন্স করা আছে? It seemed not to hear. Turned a deaf ear. অন্যদিকে তাকিয়ে রইলেন। And then I had to drive. But believe you me, to this day, I don't know how I managed it. Really. I mean, it was the most horrifying experience I ever had while shooting.
That comes out very beautifully in your book, in fact, your experience of driving over the Howrah Bridge. But talking about Satyajit Ray's aversion to artificial things, like having a background change while you were static in the car, you mention about shooting the rain scene in Pather Panchali, why he wouldn't use the rain machine and he yet had to shoot in October when generally it doesn't rain in Bengal.
True, true. But I suppose the gods look kindly on people they like. And the gods must have liked Ray. What happened was, he had met Bidhan Babu, who arranged for, you know how, ওটা কি টাকাতে বার করে আনা হয়েছিল ওই what PWD বা এরকম
road funds,
road fund, কেন না ওটা পথের পাঁচালী, পথ রয়েছে, রোড ফান্ডেতে ওটা করে দাও, ওখান থেকে টাকা বার করে দাও. But the people were such snitches, you know. ওই 15,000 টাকা দিলে পরে ওটা শেষ করুন, প্রত্যেকটা আনা মানে পয়সা সব কিছুর হিসেব দিন, তারপর they might wait for a month before the next tranche of money would come. And by that time, monsoon was over. When the next fund came in. And he was in a quandary. He didn't wish to bring, and also it would have been very difficult to take that rainmaker machine. Perhaps it would have been quite difficult to sort of take it to the village and create a kind of zone which creates the illusion of total rain. In any case, he was averse to that. He waited, and he was still working with DJ Keema at that time. So he could only free himself during the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays. He waited one whole weekend with the camera, nothing happened. And he said, I can't. I sort of, it's not possible for me to take the weekdays again. And so he briefed the people over there how to shoot it. And actually that fantastic rain scene happened without his presence.
Okay.
And it worked out very well without him. I must say that it must have been again a very happy accident. And it was in October, and it rained really hard. Who would believe it? And there was one of his assistants who was very, again, street smart. He was carrying a snuff box, which he used, Noshi. And when Durga gets drenched, he had the presence of mind, and Ray couldn't have taught him that. It was all himself, Shanti Babu, I think, Shanti Lal, who, and suddenly, snuff ঢুকিয়ে দিলেন, and she started sneezing uncontrollably, and that was shot. Rain, getting dressed, starts sneezing. Next thing, you have fever. Absolute logic.
You know, Borun, that one of the things a lot of people said about Satyajit Ray, and you've mentioned this also, is that he was very fixed in his beliefs. Somebody who would almost say was dogmatic.
All right. Yeah.
And one of the sentences that you quote in the book, one of the sentences that we've heard a lot of times whenever Ray has been discussed, is the sentence, the director is the only person who knows what the film is about. Is this dogmatic, dictatorial, decisive, or deliberate?
No, he increasingly, as he became more established as a director, when he began first as a director, he was just a director who wrote the script. That was all. He had a professional editor. He had a fantastic cameraman called Subrata Mitra. And he had a fantastic art director, also Bongshi Chandragupta. So there was a kind of trinity, the holy trinity, the three of them, Subrata Mitra, Bongshi and Manikda. And they happily carried on making films. But later on, he started saying or feeling that he had to look through the viewfinder to be able to control the film, and started gradually usurping the role of the cameraman, so much so that one fine morning Subrata Mitra had to quit. He couldn't accept that anymore. That happened. And but the way he said that only the director knows, it wasn't bragging, it wasn't being dictatorial. He really believed that he knew what the film was going to be. Nobody else had that vision. To that extent, he was speaking the truth. He was telling the truth, saying the truth. He says somewhere elsewhere that I have the entire film shot, edited in my mind before I have started shooting. The first shot has been taken. I have the entire thing there in my mind. I know exactly how it is going to end, how it is going to show in the edited version. That is scary. That is scary. And to that, if you accept that, then you have to accept the fact that only he knew how the film was going to crystallize in the end. Nobody else. But it is highly, highly dictatorial. Make no bones about it.
Talking about being dictatorial or dogmatic, Borunda, interestingly enough, I have had only one interaction with the great man. And that was a time when he was horizontal and I was vertical. Because he was undergoing a surgical procedure. And the surgeon concerned happened to have been my father. And my father said to me, I was a medical student in final year. And I used to assist him once in a while. And he said to me, you'll never have an opportunity to meet this great man again, so you can come and assist me for this procedure. It was a fairly small surgical procedure. So I went to assist him, and he introduced me. He said, Satyajit Babu, this is my son. And he looked at me and said, oh, you're a doctor. I said, not yet, there, on the way. And he asked me what I wanted to do. And I said, I want to be a surgeon. Thank God I didn't tell him brain surgery at that time. And he looked at me. This is on his way to the operation theater, when he's wheeled into the operation theater for anesthesia. And he said to me, you want to be a surgeon? Very bad idea. And there was a silence while I looked at him crestfallen, what have I done wrong? And he said, it's a very bad idea for a son to emulate his father's profession. You never shine. And I just wonder, looking back, whether he made the right prediction, not about one, but two Shondips, that he made a prediction about at that time.
It sounds scary again, so prophetic. All things said and done, Shondip, whom I know personally very well, at one time we were like brothers, he is no match for the senior Ray. He's a competent director, that's all, but nothing beyond that. So, I mean, to know that, it's seldom that the son emulates a great father. Yeah, it works.
I think that we're getting to the end of time, so rather than my asking and monopolizing all the questions, I'll let the audience in for one or two questions to this great man while he's here. Parthada. Can we hand over a microphone to Mr. Parthadash, please? Or you can have mine.
Borunda, Mohan Agase once said that if you're acting in a Ray film, you really don't know whether you're acting or not, because Ray tells you everything, whatever you need to do. And then he cuts here, there, right, left, and center. And once it is over, you don't know whether you've really acted. But when you see it all together after the editing, then you find out that, yes, it's a good piece of acting. Do you agree?
Actually, Mohan Agase is fantastic in that one film, a telefilm that he did
Sadgati.
with Ray. Yes, Sadgati. He's absolutely fantastic. Hello. Where was that? Ray, techniques, again, an actor's director. Different techniques, different ways of making an actor work. First of all, you would find his comfort zone. The other thing is, oh my God, this is too much of echo, too much of echo. It's not needed. And the second thing is, if he felt that this man needs coaching, needs to be directed, needs to be shown. He was a fantastic actor himself, Ray. That kind of stuff he would carry on. So I really don't know, not having been there while Agasha was shooting there, whether he actually directed the actor, Ray did. But if Mohan Agasha says that, he explained everything to him. But in our case, I would say, in my case and in Thritiman's case, he told me clearly before the shooting commenced. He said, Borun, since I've selected you for this role, I would imagine you understand what this character means. So I'm not going to tell you how to act. I have selected you, and I would let you be as long as I think that what you are doing is not contrary to the interests of my film. At that point, you have to take my advice and do as I tell you to do. Otherwise, I'll let you be. So he used different people differently. In the same film where I acted, Seemabaddha, he used the company secretary who was a South Indian gentleman. His immaculate looks as a South Indian sort of, impressed him so much that Ray just took him. And he had the kind of conviction that I'll make him. Really it worked. Because when you see the edited film, that the company secretary looks absolutely brilliant. But it must have been one of the most difficult things for Ray to sort of make him act like that. Because he was not an actor at all. And he fumbled with his words, he couldn't speak a line of Bengali, his English was also atrocious. And so everything was going wrong. But still he looks absolutely brilliant in the film. He coached him word by word and made him act like that. But in our case, he had left us alone.
Mr. Chanda, I have a question. I haven't read the book, but one question coming to my mind, whether it's a research-based work or it's an interview-based work, your representation here.
Research, I don't know what kind of research. I never went to the National Library or did that kind of research. But I plowed through all the media in search of interviews that had taken place, especially foreign journalists who had interviewed Ray. There are, a lot of it is available on air, meaning YouTube or one of these other specialized channels. I went through them. I literally played it over and over again so that I had an excerpt totally. What Ray had said, what the question was, what Ray had said. It took me hours to do that. But I did that kind of dogged research, yes. And I interviewed a whole lot of people, whole lot of actors, whole lot of cameramen, all that, yes.
Not to mention the Sunday morning antas that you were invited to.
Yes, yes, that was also there. It left an indelible significant experience for me to be amongst the greats and feel that, you know, he was treating me like one of them, as it were.
Borun describes in his book this Sunday morning adda that he would have in his house when he was not shooting, and to which Borun was a permanent invitee, and where you could get lots of delicious snacks, I think you describe in your book.
Bodhi was a fantastic cook.
And
She
spent a lot of time chatting with a lot of film personalities on a Sunday morning.
I was sort of gawking at them, really, because he had not talked about the role at all. He asked me to come on these Sunday mornings because he was in the process of sizing me up. When Dhriti got the role of Pradip Tandip, I was asked, I was dying to do that film. But when he did that film, and when I watched it, I said, my God, you can't be him. I'll still do my version, but Dhriti's is much, much superior. He is the role.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Sir Barun. Why not Barunda? Why not Borun Babu? Because that's my personal conferring of knighthood after seeing Seemabaddha for umpteen times. There was no Seemabaddha, and there is no Seemabaddha till date. And frankly, even after that, whatever roles you have played, the small ones, the bigger ones, the not so big, not so small, they're all unique. And there is hardly anybody else exactly like Barun Chanda. That's my personal feeling. I snatched this opportunity with the permission of Dr. Chatterjee.
I would have blushed vermilion if I was younger.
Lovely. And would have come from the other sex. Really.
I can only meekly say to the general audience, I haven't paid him to say so.
So, I'm coming straight to my question. I'll take you down memory lane to Seemabaddha's staircase, where you were climbing stairs. You really climbed the stairs. You climbed it so well. And
Not just me, but Ray himself.
okay, so that's the news. My question was, and is, and will be for many years to come, like whether it was, first is technical question, whether it was a long take like Bergman or Sylvester Stallone films or the Birdman recently, was it a long take which was showing your exasperations, etc., or was it into cuts?
Into cuts.
It-
But
it
the way
never-
it is edited, you can't make out.
Yes, I was about to ask this, whether it was the director Satyajit Ray or the actor Barun Chanda or the editor Satyajit Ray.
He had planned it out, and mentally I had also planned it out with him. So, we worked it out. You have 9 floors to climb. So what I did was, the first 2 or 3 floors, I was very young, I was barely 30. And I could climb up actually 3 steps at a time. I was that young and that sprightly. But he said, no, 2 steps is fine. You don't have to show off. And so the first 2 floors or 3 floors, I was doing 2 steps at a time, all through. And then from the 3rd floor, I think, it became a kind of horse canter. 2 steps, 1 step, 2 steps, 1 step. It gave a kind of staccato feel to your walk. So all this one worked out in one's mind. And he went along with that. We did not discuss the modalities of the walk. He said, "Tu প্রথমগুলো বেশ তাড়াতাড়ি করবে, বেশ চটপট করে উঠবে, পরে অবশ্যই তুমি টায়ার্ড হয়ে যাচ্ছ, তুমি একটু আস্তে আস্তে হয়ে আসবে, তারপরে you work it out, right? Not to worry, we'll start.
We can take a last question before we allow Borun some peace and rest. Yes.
There is a scene in Seemabaddha where an advertisement film about the electric fan is shown to you as a child.
Yes, yes.
Is it true that Ray had invited ideas from you, and being the final product of that advertisement film which was shown there, had your contribution?
I don't think I had any contribution in that ad film while he was shooting it, other than providing him with my colleagues from Clarion Advertising who were there, all of them, most of them, other than Tinu Anand, who was his assistant director from Bombay. But otherwise, most of those boys were my colleagues in Clarion Advertising. But other than that, I don't think I made any contribution.
Aksana, last question.
Once Shyam Bengal came for one of our Ray memorial lectures where he said that the government of India had asked him to make a documentary on Ray, a duration of which would be about 20 minutes. And when he started researching on Ray, he realized that the documentary will have to be at least for 120 minutes and not 20 minutes. So when you were writing the book, did you ever have a feeling that it's very difficult to, write everything about Ray in one volume?
I've seen that documentary at least 5 times, if not more. And then I was lucky enough to talk to him again. And well, actually he says, he said something very nice about this book. He said, if you have read this, you don't need to read any other book on Ray, Champanegal. I felt blessed.
Considering Borun, I think that brings us to the end, and I'll just read a line from your book where you say, I had the utmost difficulty in finishing this book for the simple reason that a book on Ray can never be really complete. There are so many things to write about him, so many aspects of his work that are literally virgin territory that no one has written about before. And of course, there's a crying need to highlight all of them. And that's what you write in the epilogue in your book.
I do.
And I think that just sums up the answer to Parthana's question as well, about how long you could write about this man. Well, Borun, thank you very much for sharing your time with us. I have to tell you that he's just arrived from Mumbai this afternoon, made multiple requests to me to try and change the date of the interview from today, because he's traveling from Bombay, flew down, literally went home and came straight back to the Bengal Club. So I think, Borun, we are really grateful to you. I'm sorry we couldn't change the day, but it's been a wonderful experience.
I had time to shave, yes.
It's been a wonderful experience to talk to you. Thank you very, very much.
I am truly indebted to Sandip. He has also seen me almost in a prostrate fashion, horizontal, while he has been vertical. I suffer from a spinal cord problem, trying to do things that I shouldn't have tried when I was younger. And age sort of, you do a kind of replay. The body has its revenge. And he's been my dog there. So I'm truly indebted in more ways than one, not just for this lovely evening, but also Shivanti. She's been so great, so lovely. She called me up and asked me a whole lot of questions that would make me feel comfortable and that kind of stuff. And it's been beautifully arranged. Thank you so much, Shivanti. And I love this room particularly. This is where my son was married, or the sort of thing was, the reception took place here. And I have lovely memories of this room. I'm very happy that it is taking place here and not downstairs in that huge hall. That would have been intimidating, but this is lovely, it's cozy, it's warm, and I can talk to, I can see faces all the time. Yes, lovely. Thank you very much, Bengal Club, for giving me the opportunity to be with you. May I add something? The books are there. Whosoever wishes to sort of buy the book, I would love to autograph them and talk to them. And I think it's got a 10% off on the price. So if you wish to, after the meeting is over, the program is over, the books are all there. I'll be there waiting for you. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. It's a great honor to be able to offer a vote of thanks for this wonderful talk given by Barun Chanda, an actor who we all admire. The thanks first to Borun for giving this talk, and I hope we can get you back again sometime. Thanks to Bengal Club, and thanks to the Library Subcommittee for organizing this, especially this I would consider a continuation of celebration of Ray's 100 years, which we are still doing from the Ray Society. And thanks to Seemabaddha for being part of the organization, and I will request Seemabaddha to offer a bouquet of flowers and a small gift at a